Dear Werner Hoyer, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Imagine that I would come back from my round-the-world flights in a balloon or a solar airplane saying, the planet is beautiful, nature is fragile, life is a miracle, and we have to protect it. What would happen? You would probably applaud because it's very poetic, it's politically correct to say that, but it would change just nothing. Because the world is not run by the beauty of nature and the magic of life. The world is run by business. So I'm not here to say that the blue planet is beautiful. I'm here to say that fighting climate change is the biggest business opportunity of the century. It's the biggest opportunity to make profit, to create jobs, to be re-elected as politician. But of course, if we want to reach this business opportunity in fighting climate change, we need to change the paradigm of energy. Change the paradigm of energy. And I'll give you an example. When I launched my project of flying around the world in a solar-powered airplane, I went to see, of course, the constructors of airplanes. And they looked at me, laughed, and said, it takes 1 minute to calculate that the sun will not give enough energy for your plane to fly day and night. And this is typical. The logic, the paradigm of energy is about more production, enough supply, not a paradigm of efficiency. So, of course, the plane, a normal plane, couldn't cope with the energy of the sun to fly day and night. So we had to build an abnormal airplane, an airplane that was so efficient that it could cope with the energy of the sun. This is why we had this gigantic wingspan of 72 meters for a very, very small weight of 2,300 kilos. So basically the size of a jumbo jet and the weight of a car. So you see how we have to handle the question of energy. And today, it's exactly the same with the war in Ukraine. There's a lack of Russian gas coming to Europe. Everybody is panicking, saying, where can we find additional supply, more gas from elsewhere, instead of thinking, how can we consume less? How can we save it? How can we be efficient in the use of energy? And this is the type of things I was reflecting when entering this hall an hour ago. I was briefly interviewed, and the first question was, do you think that the crisis of energy due to the war of Ukraine will make people forget about the climate change priority? Well, the people who forget the climate change priority because of the energy crisis are people who have not yet understood how to use energy. Because it's clear that the answer is the same. The answer is the same everywhere. We have to introduce the technologies that allow us to manage energy in a better way. And this is for climate, this is for the war in Ukraine, this is for the environment, and this is for business. So just imagine how I got to these conclusions. I was flying around the world in a solar-powered airplane with no fuel on board, with big propellers turning, with no noise and no pollution. And I could fly day and night as long as I wanted. And there's a moment, I promise you, I thought, wow, that's completely unreal. I am pushed into the future. This is science fiction movie. And not at all. It was not the future. It is today with what the current technologies allow us to do today. And that was for me maybe one of the biggest revelations of my life, because I understood that if I was not in the future, it meant that the rest of the world was in the past. And we don't notice it because we are living in this world. It's exactly like the fish who is living in the water and does not know he's wet. We live in the world of the past, and we don't notice it. We live in a world with thermal engines that have a yield of maximum 27%. Usually it's more 20%. It means that 80% of the energy you put in your tank is wasted and lost because of the forces of friction, heat, and resistance. My electrical motors on solar impulse had 97% of yield. It means I was losing only 3%. We live in the world of the past with buildings who are badly insulated, so we are losing energy like hell, and all the heating, cooling, and lighting systems are completely outdated and inefficient. We have old industrial processes. But when I say old industrial processes, it is not just an expression. Just imagine, I fell off my chair when I heard that. 1/3 of the electricity of the world is used by electrical motors in the industries. A lot of them are for pumps. Pumping water, pumping liquids, gas, powders, whatever. If you want to reduce the flow, instead of decreasing the power of the pump, they increase the resistance in the tube. So they keep the pump turning full power with full energy, and they just press on the tube to reduce the flow. This is middle age, completely middle age. And when we speak about the dependency on fossil fuels, we forget that the renewable energies have finally become much, much cheaper than gas, coal, and oil. So we live in a world of the past, and we are bravely waving our latest smartphone to make believe we are modern. But everything else than our smartphone has been invented 120 years ago at the beginning of the oil era. And this has to change. This has to be modernized. So it's not just a question of green activists asking to protect climate. It is an absolute business need and business opportunity to modernize our world, to change the sources of energy, to change the insulation in the buildings, to change the heating, cooling, and lighting systems everywhere. It is the opportunity, finally, to be efficient with new industrial processes. So basically, even if there was no climate change, the wording would be the same. Modernizing our world means having cheaper sources of energy and having less waste of energy, less waste of resources, less waste of water, and less production of waste that people don't even use as a resource. We see the business opportunities there. It's absolutely amazing. Now the question is it profitable to do it, or is it a huge need in subsidies? In other words, is it an investment or is it a cost? If it's a cost, it will never happen. If it's an investment, it will happen, but we have to prove it. And this is what we have done at the Solar Impulse Foundation together with EIB. Werner Hoyer, Ambroise Fayol, they gave us a lot of support in order to identify solutions in the world, technical solutions, devices, product, materials, systems that would be able to protect the environment and at the same time make economical profit for the company producing the system, as well as for the consumer who would reduce his energy bill or resource bill in order to make a bigger saving or maybe even a bigger profit. So in the beginning, people told us it's completely impossible. You will never be able to find so many solutions. Can you imagine that we have now reached 1,500 of them? And not only new sources of energy that are clean, but all the ways to transform the unrecyclable waste into construction stones, ways to use systems to recover the heat from the chimney to give it back to the factory. By the way, it's 20 to 40% reduction in the energy bill. It's common sense. So most of these solutions are not very high-tech systems. There are systems that are available today, make common sense, and need to be known much better. That's why I'm here. Because having 1,500 solutions that are economically profitable to protect the environment and see that nobody uses them, I tell you, it's really frustrating. Really frustrating. And I think now, when we are speaking of the climate bank for the EIB, it's a fantastic example. It's a fantastic symbol to follow. Because today, there are two big fields on the investments, as well for the developing countries than for the developed countries. If you want to know a number, the world record for the cheapest energy in the world is Portugal with 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour. 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Do you know how much you pay your energy bill in your country? 10 times more, 20 times more, 30 times more in some countries. So it's clear that today, when you hear about renewable energy, you have to check first how you can use it, how you can fund it, how you can invest in it. And for the developing world, this is also a complete change in paradigm. The poorest countries of the world today get poorer every year because they have to use foreign currencies, that means dollars, to import fossil energies. It's a huge waste of money compared to the investment into decentralized sources of renewable energy. Instead of having coal or whatever power plants centralized with electric wires going everywhere and never reaching the periphery and leaving a lot of people without electricity, you can have decentralized renewable energy power plants that are much cheaper to introduce and that allow a local development, local job creation. You bring back hope with this investment. Now, of course, everything about energy efficiency. This is somewhere where we need much more investment. But it is not anymore 20 big corporations that take all the loans. No, it will be thousands of little ones that need the investment. All the people who want to put a heat pump with geothermia in their building, it reduces by 5 the energy bill, and of course the emission of CO2. But we need to have the capex at the beginning. Insulation of buildings, it's the same. New processors for the industry, here again it's the same. So we see that the need for investment is extremely high, but it is like for the energy. It is not anymore so well centralized. It is much more decentralized, delocalized, touching smaller customers. So we need to change a little bit our mindset. We need to see that today protecting the environment is at the same time the best possibility to increase the purchase power of people. We need to show that absolutely everywhere the solutions exist to increase stability. If you have access to local energy, you have less wars. If you have access to local energy, you have less poverty. So we have finally a way to reconcile ecology and economy. It should not anymore be the one who are pushing climate action with degrowth, with fighting against the comfort, the mobility, and the economic development, because this will lead to social chaos. And on the other side, it should be absolutely prohibited to continue with the permission to pollute and destroy the world. We have now the solutions that allow what I like to call a qualitative growth. Qualitative growth is when you create jobs and you make profit by replacing what is polluting by what is protecting the environment. And here there's a fantastic field, just open for the pioneers. So of course you have some people who are afraid of changing anything. So many people say, we don't know how to do it. We don't know if we can go in renewables. We don't know if we can use these new technologies. We don't know if we can invest in another way. And this is why we need pioneers and explorers, people who lead the way. And if I like EIB so much, it's because they are leading the way. They had the absolute courage to take the name of Climate Bank. And that's a complete change in paradigm. Because usually you have climate action by green activists, and here you have a climate bank. And you have the money to invest into the new technologies, into the new infrastructures. You have the money to modernize our world and make it finally efficient. But it will not be enough if there are not enough people supporting that, if there are not enough people following it, leading it in their own country, and getting rid of this old belief that fighting climate change and protecting the environment is difficult, boring, and expensive. No. It is easy because the solutions exist. It is profitable because these solutions are profitable, and it is possible because we show that everything is available if we use it. So what is preventing us to do it? Fear, habits, stupidity. I'm always saying that it's not mean people who will destroy the world. It is stupid people who will destroy the world. Lazy people who don't want to embrace the change, who don't want to embrace new ways of thinking and doing. So in this audience, please be the ambassadors of this way of thinking. And you can go on the Solar Impulse website. It's absolutely for free. We are non-for-profit. You go on the Solution Explorer, and the Solution Explorer is a search engine for solutions. You just ask what you need, and I hope you'll find it. And once you find it, you are financial people, you know how to invest in it. And we'll have an incredible leverage of changing the world. And by the way, by being more profitable and more efficient, we will also decarbonize. But decarbonization should be the consequence and not the goal, because if it's the goal, people will fight against each other. They will say, oh, we don't know how to do. No, put the solutions on the table, invest in the solutions, fund them, and as a consequence, we will decarbonize and protect the environment. So a lot of changes in the paradigms, but pioneers love to change paradigms because it makes life much more interesting, much more inspiring, and I hope we will all do it together. Thank you very much and good luck.